Good morning, everybody, and let's get started. This first point is pretty typical of what can happen out there in a lot of matches. What we're going to do is just take a look at how the match at this point goes at regular speed, and then we'll break it down, and you can see the loopy cross courts, the net people. It's tough to get involved, and the baseliners have decided to stay back on the shot, so we have these nice long points. And then at some point, you'll see Andrea here coming up, who's going to change things, and let's see how she does change things. She takes it up the line, and there it is. So let's break this down a little bit. Okay, now, there are a couple of things you can do in these situations. One is, if you can see Amy's back on her service line because of the lobbing situation. Another thing that you can do as a player is if you see that these balls are going cross court, you can actually adjust your positioning and slide more into the center. So if that ball that's coming off Barb's racket isn't cross court enough, she could intercept that with a volley or an overhead. But this is, one of the suggestions that I've been making pretty much weekly, and that is when you have this opportunity to step up and strike a good forehand, and you can see there's a fair bit of space over here to Gail's left, and it's not that you have to hit a passing shot. I think this came up last week, that when you have a two-handed volleyer at the net, all you really have to do is just stretch them out or somehow get the ball a little bit lower, and that's exactly... and Gail's back on the service line because she's been seeing a lot of lobs coming cross court, so she's not going to stand on top of the net. So if you're in Andrea's position and you can hit this kind of shot, there you go. And when you're Andrea's partner or anybody's partner and you see the shot being hit from Amy's position, the moment you see that person sliding over to their left at the net to hit a volley, is just immediately just jump right into the middle of the court. And anything that comes up either short or diagonally across the middle, you're on top of it to kind of clean it up and finish the point off from there. Okay, so that was a real good first point. Let's move ahead in our game here. Let's play this point out and see what we have. Boy, this is a really good point to take a look at, because a lot of things were happening, different situations being created in the points. So let's take it right from the beginning, where Amy's stepping up into the court. She takes this return and goes out wide. And so, first off, sorry, Gail, but this is just a habit you want to keep track of, and that is just turning and looking too long, because obviously at this point we've kind of lost track of what Andrea and Amy are really doing. And at the same time, this middle has been opened up wide, which is why you want to go with some angles on occasion to open up that middle of the court. So let's move on forward into the point where Amy's snuck in there. She's in great position, and where does she go with this? She goes at the person closest to her, which is exactly, the right kind of play in that situation. Gail makes a nice reflex volley off of that, and let's see how this point plays off. There's a low ball. Now at this point, as Gail's going to hit this shot, and you can see Barb switching in behind her, Gail's got a couple of options here, and I think you can see this. She can either play through the center, or she has a little bit of an angle to play back in front of Amy, since she's back on the service line. That is available to her. So let's see where she does go with it. She tries to go with that second option, which has stretched her out. And what's real interesting here, and this is where Gail has you can see she's on that side of the court, but instead of just switching and staying, she's tracking the ball. And when you're in Barb's position in the backcourt, this can be a bit confusing at times, but you try to give that net person as much latitude as possible, because that's the person that can end the point by taking it out of the air at a sooner point. So Amy's able to get it by her now. Okay, so Gail is retreating back into position, and Barb has some options. She's got a lot of options here. One, she can go with a lob over Amy. She can, boy, she's got the middle wide open. She also has this front area in front of Andrea, who's backing up right now, anticipating Barb hitting the lob. So you can see there are a lot of things that go on during a point, and you have less than a second to recognize what's going on. So Barb goes with the high percentage cross court, deep pushes Andrea back into the court. And again, just be mindful of your spacing here. I think we have a little bit too big of a gap here, so just be aware of that distance between you and your partner. Okay, now she's played a good short ball, and you can see Barb was caught a little bit off guard, and on this kind of situation, what I always kind of favor is someone in Andrea's position just moving up into the court, because you can see Barb is struggling, barely getting to this ball. So both Andrea and Amy in this situation can move up and really close down those open areas that are in the court right now. And another curious thing here, we can see where Gail is totally locked in on Barb, and you can, in these kind of situations, again, be more facing to the net to your opponents, because you want to see how they're reacting off of this situation instead of just eyeballing your partner 100% of the time. The ball goes short angle. Okay, and now we've got pretty good spacing here on the other side of the net. And let's see where Andrea goes with this shot. My money, we got two good options, either up the sideline, she's got a fair bit of space there, or she can go between the two of them. Or a third option, both Barb and Gail are pretty much around the service line area, and their feet are available. Let's see what she goes with on this. She goes through the center. Can't go wrong with low up the center, and you can see that's a tough volley for anybody to play. And that's how you finish off the point. Boy, that was really well done. So let's take it forward here. Let's take a look at another point. And let's see what happens here. Okay. Okay, interesting point. These kind of situations always occur on the court, so let's take this. First off, great spacing here. Amy, I really like what you're doing, and being closer to the center like this. In the long run, that's really going to pay dividends for you. So here we go. Andrea's returning against a baseliner in Barb. And what does she do? She moves up on a short serve. Look how close she is to the service line, and she hits a smart shot. Barb's back on the baseline. She goes short with it. Okay, and again, in this situation, the toughest play for someone who's running up to that ball is to really finesse a lob over that net person in front. And this ball will typically go cross court the vast majority of the time. And that's where, from Andrea's position, hitting that short ball that someone's barely getting to, you can see Barb's below the level of the net as she's making contact. That the thing you really need to do is to move up and, close off that space for Barb that will put her in a tough position. Okay, so the ball is played cross court. Now, this kind of situation with Andrea being this close, I seriously doubt she's lobbing, but I want you to look at what Gail does here. What Gail does is she backs up, and this does a couple of things. One, and the main thing, is she's really opened up the court as far as Andrea, where she can go. She can go through the middle, she can go at her feet, she can go up the alley. And you can see Andrea plays a nice low ball, and if you can see where Gail's feet are right now, Gail is about a step or so behind her service line, and tough situation to be in with a low ball. And when you're in Amy's position and you see this situation develop, again, move up into the center, because this area behind Amy really doesn't exist based on where Gail is playing this ball from, and the place to be is in the middle of the court. But I think what happens here is Gail just isn't able to make a good play off of that. And so the thing to do in that situation, yeah, I could understand why she's backing up. She's thinking, well, Barb's up at the net, maybe a lob's coming. But again, I looked at where Andrea was in the court. She was well in front of her baseline, and I didn't see a lob coming. So at some point, you got to make a decision which way, what you're going to cover. You can't cover everything. My money would have been on the low ball, and that's exactly what came. Okay? So let's take a look at one more point here on this series. Moving forward, and let's see what happens with this point. So here we are in this scenario of the deep cross courts. And we're trying to figure out what the heck can we do. Okay. This is a good one. So here we have these cross-court balls going, and which can very easily put you on your heels. Amy's actually in a pretty good spot here, but this time Barb chooses to lob in front of her, and it clears her. And ideally, I think Barb, you know what the coach likes to see you do is to come up, especially Andrea's running in my direction. She's probably worried about running into me, and so she isn't gonna, it's a tough play, but look how far behind the baseline she is. And so moving up Barb, you know, we can take that ball out of the air, and by staying back, Andrea's able to get back into the point. Now you can see what's starting to happen now is, you know, Amy's backing up on her side of the court, and what I would like you to do is watch what happens eventually to Amy on this situation. When Barb's back there and Amy knows what she's going to hit, here comes that lob, and by backing up and letting that ball bounce, let's see what kind of a position it puts Amy in. You can see it puts her in an awkward position. She was out of the camera. So in taking a look at this situation, you know, back in there, players, and this goes for all of you, is that when you see this situation develop, rather than letting the ball play you and going on your heels, obviously the play is move up and take it out of the air, because the moment you take it out of the air, you're changing the situation on the court and hopefully getting that baseliner out of that lobbing scenario, and it gives you some different options as far as volleying short or attacking their net person, anything to get out of this cross-court lob that pushes you to the back fence. Okay? So that completes that first section here.